You think they left suddenly, but if you go back just a little, there was a moment before that. Nothing dramatic. Nothing you'd stop the conversation for. You were talking, explaining something, maybe even laughing, and they paused. Not in an obvious way, just enough to feel different, a slower reply, a slight delay before answering, that look, like they were there, but also somewhere else for a second, and you kept going. That's usually where it begins. Not with distance, not with a fight, not with someone deciding to leave. It begins in a moment that feels easy to ignore, because from your side, everything still works. They're still listening, still responding, still being who they've always been. So you don't question it. Why would you? But something shifts. Quietly, Carl Jung had this idea that the mind doesn't collapse all at once. It starts pulling back when something doesn't feel right for too long. And that's what most people never see. The empath doesn't leave when they stop caring. They leave when being there starts to feel off. Not wrong enough to confront. Not heavy enough to walk away. Just enough to stay in the back of their mind, so they brush it aside. It's nothing, I'm overthinking. They didn't mean it like that, and they stay. They keep showing up the same way. Keep the tone soft. Keep things easy. But inside, something changes direction. They start noticing more, holding more, saying less. Not all at once. Just gradually. And the strange part is, from where you're standing, nothing really changed. But from their side, something already started breaking. It doesn't start with distance. It starts with something small. A sentence they were about to say, and then don't. Not because it didn't matter, but because they already know how it's going to go. They've seen that moment before. The shift in your tone. That slight defensiveness. That feeling that somehow they'll end up explaining themselves instead. So this time, they stop. Sit with it for a second, and change what they were about to say. Not a big change, just enough. Take the edge off, leave a few things out. Say it in a way that won't turn into something bigger. From your side, nothing happened. The conversation keeps flowing. Everything feels normal, but something important just got lost. They were about to be honest, and chose not to be. And once that line is crossed, even quietly, it doesn't stay a one-time thing. You see it in small moments, like when they type a message, read it, and delete it. Or when something bothers them, and they almost bring it up. But let it go instead. Not because it's okay, but because it feels easier than dealing with what comes after. So they start holding things back. Things they used to say without thinking. Things that used to come out naturally. Now they pass through a second thought first. You don't notice. They're still there, still kind, still talking like always. Nothing breaks on the surface, but inside, something settles. A quiet understanding they don't say out loud. I can't fully be myself here. Not in a dramatic way. Just enough to hesitate. Just enough to pause. Just enough to stop being completely open. And that's where it really begins. Not the distance between you, but the distance inside them, between who they are and who they feel safe being around you. At this point, they haven't gone anywhere. They're still there, still answering, still sitting across from you, like always. If anything, it feels easier, less tension, less back and forth. You might even think, this is better than before. But something important has already shifted. They're not reacting the same way. Not because they're more at peace, because they're expecting less. There was a time they would look at you and wait. Wait for you to notice something was off. Wait for you to ask what they meant. Wait for you to meet them halfway. They don't do that anymore. You can see it in small moments, like when you say something that hits the wrong way, and instead of pausing the conversation, they just take a sip of their drink, nod, and let you keep talking. Not because it didn't matter, because they already know what would happen if they stopped you, or when there's a silence. The kind that used to turn into a real conversation, and now it just passes. No one picks it up, especially not them. They're still present, but they're no longer reaching, no longer waiting for you to understand without being told, no longer hoping you'll notice what they didn't say. That part quietly disappears. And the strange thing is, this actually feels lighter for them. Less frustration, less explaining, less of that feeling of trying to be understood and not quite getting there. So they go along with things. Keep it simple, keep it easy. From your side, it might look like things finally settled. No tension, no emotional weight. Everything just flows. But something important is gone. Not loudly. Not in a way you can point to. The version of them that used to reach for you stops trying at some point. The way they look at you changes. Not all at once, just in small moments. They start noticing things they used to ignore. How often they're the one keeping the conversation alive. How quickly you move past something that mattered to them. How easy it is for you to feel okay, while they're still sitting with something and they don't react the way they used to. Not because it doesn't affect them, because they're paying attention now. You see it in little shifts, like when your name shows up on their phone, and for the first time. They don't feel that same pull to answer right away. No rush, no curiosity, just a pause. Or when you're talking, and they catch something in your tone. Something they would have questioned before. And this time, they just register it. No follow-up, no digging deeper. They just see it. And these moments, they seem small from the outside. But they stay with them longer than they should. They replay them later. Connect them with other things. Start seeing a pattern they can't unsee anymore. And that's where something shifts. Not loudly, not emotionally, not anger. Not even disappointment. Just that quiet realization that something isn't coming back. The effort, the awareness, the way they used to feel, met. And once that clicks, they stop looking for it. Stop waiting for it to show up again. From your side, nothing has exploded. No big conversation. No moment where everything falls apart. But inside them, something has already settled. They stop needing you to notice. And that's when you've already lost them. People usually want a reason. Something clear. One moment they can point to and say, that's when everything changed. But for them, it didn't happen like that. It was more like a feeling. One they kept running into. Different days, different conversations, same weight. Like walking away from a conversation and not being able to explain why it felt off. Just knowing it did, or realizing you're tired. Before you even understand what exactly drained you. There were moments, sure, small ones. You probably wouldn't even remember most of them. But they do, not perfectly, just enough. That time, they needed support, and somehow ended up being the one holding everything together again. That moment, they were clearly not okay. And it passed like nothing happened. That conversation that looked fine on the surface, but left something sitting wrong in their chest. Like it didn't land the way it should have, individually. None of it screams problem. You could probably explain every single one of those moments. Say it wasn't intentional. Say it wasn't that serious, and maybe it wasn't, but for them, it didn't go away after. It stayed. Not as a big thought, more like a quiet tension that kept showing up. That same question, just in different forms. Why do I keep feeling this here? At first, they turn it inward. Maybe I'm expecting too much. Maybe I'm reading into things. Maybe this is just how relationships feel, so they stay. And that feeling shows up again and again, in slightly different ways, but familiar enough, until something shifts, not outside. Inside, they stop trying to make sense of it. Stop breaking it down. Stop giving it the benefit of the doubt, because at some point, they don't need to anymore. It doesn't feel confusing anymore. It just feels clear. They don't need to decide anything, because it already feels decided. At this point, they're still around. Nothing about it looks like distance. They reply. They sit with you. They show up when expected. If someone looked from the outside, they'd say, everything is fine, but something doesn't land the same way anymore. You say something that used to matter to them, something that would have pulled a reaction before, and this time, it just passes. They hear you, they respond, but it doesn't go anywhere. And that's the part that feels strange. Not wrong, not tense, just flat. It's like the depth between you quietly disappeared. Not completely, just enough to feel it. They're there, but they're not staying in the moment with you anymore. Not fully. You can feel it in small ways. You share something real, and instead of going deeper with you, They keep it on the surface. You pause, expecting something more, and nothing comes. Not because they're holding back, because they're no longer looking for something deeper there and inside them. It feels different too, quieter, like something in them just stopped responding the same way. They don't chase meaning in the conversation like before. Don't try to understand every layer. Don't stay in things longer than they need to. Not out of coldness, out of wear. Something in them got tired of reaching and not quite arriving anywhere. So now they stay where it's easier, lighter, more neutral, and that changes everything, without looking like it did, because from your side, you're still talking to them, still interacting, still sharing space. But you're not reaching the same place in them anymore. Not the part that used to meet you there. When they finally pull away, it doesn't feel like a scene. There's no clear ending. No heavy conversation where everything gets said. No moment you can point to and think, that's where it ended. It shows up in smaller ways, the kind you don't take seriously at first. You start noticing gaps, like when you text them and the reply comes hours later. Not cold, not rude. Just, without anything behind it, the conversation moves. But it doesn't go anywhere. Or when you see them in person, and everything is polite, easy, but something's missing. That sense that they're really there with you, and it's confusing. Because nothing is obviously wrong. That's what makes it hard to react. Hard to question, hard to confront. But inside them, this isn't new. What feels subtle to you has already been settled for them. Not in a dramatic way. More like something that slowly stopped moving, and eventually just stayed that way. So when the distance becomes visible, it feels calm. That's the part that usually hits the hardest. You expect tension. Some sign that this is difficult for them too. But what you get instead is someone who isn't trying to fix it anymore. Not out of indifference, but because that effort already ran out somewhere along the way. What looks like detachment is usually the end of something you didn't see happening. And by the time you start feeling the absence, they already went through all of it, just not with you. Most people remember the ending. When something feels off enough to question, when the distance finally becomes visible, when you start thinking something changed. But if you go back, this didn't start there. It started in moments that didn't look like anything. Like when they stopped telling you certain things, and you didn't even notice they stopped sharing. When something happened in their day, and instead of thinking, I should tell them this, they kept it to themselves. Not because it didn't matter, but because they already knew how it would go. Those moments don't stand out. They don't interrupt anything. Life keeps moving. Conversations still happen. But something is already shifting underneath that. They begin to feel alone, even while talking to you. Not in a dramatic way, just in small flashes. In the middle of a conversation, realizing they're holding back more than they're saying, sitting next to you, and feeling like it would take too much to explain what's actually going on inside them. And little by little, that becomes normal. That distance you notice at the end. It didn't suddenly appear. It's what all those moments were building without you seeing it. So when it finally shows, it's not confusing to them anymore. It fits, and that's why there's no big reaction. No urgency to fix it. No need to go back over everything. Because for them, this didn't just happen. They've been living it. And the part that's hardest to accept is this. You didn't lose them when they left. You lost them in the moments you thought nothing was happening. After everything settles, after the distance becomes real, after you feel that they're no longer coming back the same way, one question tends to stay. Do they miss me? And the answer isn't simple. Because it's not just about missing you. Somewhere along the way, something in them stopped feeling like itself. Not all at once, not in a way they could point to, just in small moments. Like catching themselves thinking twice before saying something that used to come naturally, or feeling a drop in their chest during a conversation that looked completely normal from the outside, or realizing they were more focused on keeping things smooth than actually being real. Those moments didn't look like turning points, but they stayed, and over time, they started recognizing a version of themselves they didn't fully recognize anymore. More careful, more contained, more aware of how things might land than of what they actually felt. That's what's changed. So when they look back, it's not just memories of you. It's the feeling of being slightly out of place in something that was supposed to feel natural. And that's why it doesn't always turn into longing. Sometimes it turns into relief. Not loud relief. Not obvious. Just the absence of that constant second guessing. The absence of that quiet tension. The absence of having to adjust in ways they didn't even notice at first. From your side, you might go back to small moments, trying to understand where things shifted, trying to find the exact point where it changed. But for them, it doesn't feel like one point. It feels like something that slowly stopped fitting. And once that happens, going back doesn't feel like going back, because they're not the same in that space anymore. And that's the part that's hardest to undo. They didn't just let go of you. They let go of the version of themselves that had to shrink to stay.